Depression is waking up and hating the morning. Depression is that the first struggle of the day is just to open your eyelids. That the battle has already started with let's. And then that struggle just carries on throughout the day. You move from trying to get out of bed to trying to put on your clothes. You move from trying to put on your clothes to trying to eat something. And it's not really that you're feeling anything. And I guess that's the problem, right? It's more like you just don't understand what the point is.
Only someone who has gone through it knows how dreadful it can be. This is depression, the overlooked pandemic.
I didn't really know it myself. It was actually a teacher who asked me, "How are you doing?" And that was a question that nobody had really asked me, truly. Like, how are you doing? And when I answered that question, I realized that it was very difficult for me to answer that question.
Major depressive disorder, or simply depression, is a common medical illness that negatively affects your feelings, thoughts, and day-to-day activities. It represents 99% of all mind-brain illnesses, with over 300 million people suffering from it around the world. Depression was the 10th leading cause of death in the year 2013 alone, claiming about 2.5 times more lives than homicide. 15% of all adults are estimated to experience depression at some point in their lives.
The first bout of depression that I had, I was in high school. How did my daily activities differ then? I mean, what does a high school kid do? I pretty much was doing the same things then. It's just that I've always been someone who enjoys learning, evidently. And I just didn't enjoy learning anymore. I would also, I'd say, act out a lot in the interest of just creating or trying to create some sort of excitement, because when you're depressed, it's really difficult to find the excitement in life. So I skipped school a lot because I just thought it was such a horrible thing to do, or to be in school sometimes. But actually, I also went to school a lot and then just sat around. I didn't go to my classes because I just wasn't really interested in doing the things that I enjoyed doing at all. The second time was in university, and then I think a lot changed. I had a really hard time getting to class then as well, and especially the whole waking up thing. It was just a nightmare. Imagine like waking up, you have a ton of bricks like on your body. I also suffered a lot of sleep paralysis at the time, so waking up in a very, very stressful situation would just set me off in such a bad way. And there was a lot of escapism, which meant playing video games excessively, taking the opportunity when I could with my friends to go drinking, maybe a little too much, just generally trying to not be yourself. I think that's really just like how it changed mostly.
Failing to understand depression can have major negative impacts on those who go through the illness, and can often lead to a lot of stigma from oneself and other people. This can make the condition worse, since the stigma often leads to not seeking treatment, which can completely weaken an individual and affect all aspects of their daily life.
Well, depression for me, if I'm going to like visualize, it feels almost like a heavy blanket on my body, but like it weighs you down. Like how I found out that I had depression was that I was starting to feel very tired and exhausted. I was usually very forward as a person. I like to hang out with friends and I love to be social. But I started to feel like very tired and heavy in my chest every time someone invited me or I wanted to do something. I just felt I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to spend time with anyone, and I could start to feel very sad for no reason. And that's kind of how I realized that there is something that is wrong with me, or that I wasn't really well or 100% as I should be. It was my mother who started to notice that I was behaving weirdly, like I stopped calling and I stopped being in touch with them. And that's when she asked me if everything was okay, and I said that that by that time when she asked me, I was already in contact with a psychiatrist and I was about to start my medical treatment. So my parents were very supportive. Of course they became very sad that I was suffering the way that I was, but they understood that I had a problem and they tried to help me as much as they could. Like they said, at the time I was living by my own, so they said if I wanted to, I could come back home, they would take care of me and they would help me do everyday things and just be my company to make sure that I have someone with me, and they offered their full support to always come and help me and always invite me home if I needed any support.
With my friends, I don't think really much changed. My friends were part of this escapism. We probably got up to more or to less good things because I don't think any of us were feeling really good. However, the relationship that I had with my parents and my family really, really suffered for a few years. I had a terrible relationship with my father and my siblings. Which, yeah, I don't know in what ways. It's just really difficult to feel like that they understood.
I was quiet. That's how I reacted to it. So I stopped physically talking to the people around me. I just stayed quiet for days sometimes. And I didn't feel enthusiastic about going out with friends or talking to them. So it had a negative impact on my life. It feels like everything's like heavy. And you lose interest in things that you like doing, and it feels just like a constant weight on you, and everything's just sort of bland.
Yeah. I think depression is more like a really numb ache that you can't get rid of. Like back pain. Like I would say, like, if you have really, really, really bad back pain all the time, everything sucks. Like everything is horrible. Like you cannot enjoy anything because your back is just constantly in pain. The only thing you can think about is how much your back hurts all the time. And that's kind of what depression is like. But, if your back hurts, you're not necessarily going to die from it, right? You might want to because it hurts all the time, but it's not going to do that. So you're always looking for, like, how can I get rid of it, And that's where all the stupid ideas come from. Just like, yeah. So it's not that dramatic, like cancer, heart attack is dramatic, like life-changing. I don't think, yes, depression can be life-changing, but yeah, it's it's a horrible backache.
Depression can play a role in the brain. One such effect upon the hippocampus part of the brain, which is responsible for storing memories and also the regulation of hormone called cortisol. Depression causes an excessive release of the hormone in the brain, which can slow down the production of neurons or brain cells, and even cause the neurons to shrink in size.
Mostly I needed treatment because I was self-mutilating. And that was what everybody just had as the idea of, like, that was something that has to stop. I don't think, like, I don't know if I ever really thought that I needed treatment, but I did enjoy it, and I think that's something that made me stick to it. Obviously people around me thought that I needed it, and when I went, I really enjoyed having someone to talk to and finding things out about myself, and being able to change some of the negative patterns of negative habits that I had. My psychologist, we went through cognitive behavioral therapy. So that meant that we were basically looking at all the things that I was doing to make my situation worse. This sort of negative spiral. So most people who have depression or some sort of anxiety, they typically have a negative spiral of actions. They feel bad, they do something which makes them feel worse, then they feel worse because they did it, so they do something else that makes them feel bad, and so on. And really the therapy is about finding the moments when you're about to commit to something that's going to make you feel worse, and then changing it out for something that's going to make you feel better. So you sort of train your brain into doing good things and doing things that makes it happy or relieves the anxiety compared to something that makes it worse.
I went to a psychologist and talked about, what feelings I had and what my outlook on life was, and then we discussed like that it's okay to feel sad and depressed, and that how to try to get better and look on the bright side. And it took me maybe 3-4 years. I didn't take any pills, and I also didn't get help for a really long time. So it took maybe 3-4 years, and then after I'd done therapy, it took maybe another year. It came and went.
So I started by going to the school psychiatrist or the school nurse to talk to her, and when we talked more and I described my symptoms and how I was feeling, she realized that my depression wasn't something that she could handle on her own, so she recommended me to go to the psychiatrist in my hometown. So I went there and I explained my symptoms, and they said that it's probably a depression related to overwork and stress. So I had to go through some different tests where I had to sign some documents, I had to read a bunch of questions and then answer how I felt and describe how I feel. And then I got diagnosed with depression, and we discussed different kind of treatments. So I started with like cognitive therapy and some antidepressants. So I started with a very mild form of antidepressant because I'm quite young, so they didn't wanted to give me any heavy medicine. So I started with that, and I went to therapy once a month to talk about my progress. What am I doing to reduce my anxiety? What am I doing to reduce my stress levels? And I got some ideas on how to become a bit healthier, and also how to deal with my panic attacks if I got them, and how to make myself relax more, and different exercises I could do in my everyday life if I feel stressed. So yeah.
Suicidal thoughts are also very common for people who suffer depression. These thoughts often lead to suicide attempts, with 40% of suicide victims attempting it at least once before. Depression is the main reason for someone's death of suicide about every 13 minutes, with over 41,000 suicides every single year. It is the second leading cause of deaths for people of the ages between 15 and 24, with males being 4 times more likely to die from it.
There was definitely suicidal ideation, like I was entertaining the idea quite frequently at the worst times, and like I said, I was self-mutilating quite a lot, so yeah.
Once I thought about suicide, but there was only one time where I considered it as a solution, but I managed to push that thought away because it was also one of the things that made me realize that something is wrong. So it was before my treatment, but then it never came back. So I think I was lucky that I realized what was going on in my mind before it became worse. I think it is very important because there are a lot of people who are suffering without knowing that they are ill. Because in Sweden we have a very strong culture that you're supposed to just bite together and don't complain too much about your health. And I think it's very important that we're actually open about our problems, and if we are worried that we are ill, especially when it comes to mental illness like depression, it's better to seek help and then or ask someone or talk to someone about it and see, is it something serious, because otherwise we will just go and suffer and it will become worse and worse, and the longer time it takes for you to discover that you have depression, the longer time it will take to fully heal from that depression as well.
I think I'd say get some help, because it's the best case scenario that you stop being depressed. Or if you don't want to, just keep hanging in there. And that it does get better. Your situation will change.
It's a spectrum, right? Being alive is a spectrum of things, you know, emotions, events, excitement, misery, all of these different things. And so at the end of the day, I guess I thought, you know, you go through a lot of pain, you probably end up more interesting on the other side. Find out what your negative patterns are. You know, if you are up all night listening to music that makes you feel bad, if you are acting out, if you are saying things to people that you actually don't want to be saying, you know, if you have these negative spirals, don't let yourself follow them. You know, try to break free from that pattern. And of course, it's always talk to someone and seek help. There's nothing wrong in getting some help. Just like you would go to a doctor if you would have a physical ailment. I still do. Like I'm not ashamed of it. And I think that's something that's important to consider, and something that you can allow yourself to feel when you talk about it, is to sort of understand that you don't have to be ashamed about it, and that it's definitely something that people go through, something that, while hard to understand, is something that you can empathize with. And I think realizing that other people can empathize with you means that you can also empathize with yourself. And I think that's an important step towards getting better.
Don't be ashamed. If you think you have depression, please contact www.umo.se. That's www.umo.se. And your nearest school psychologist or any professional psychologist. They will help you. If you think someone you know has depression, please address your concerns. You may be helping save someone's life. Do not stay quiet. You are not alone.